Good morning, Carolina Village. My name is Aline, and welcome to another session of the Village Vitality Series. Today, we'll be focusing on tapping in. And when I say tapping in, it can mean different things to different people. For me, I like to think of trying to tap into my inner power. So, a little backstory for today's inspiration, and a lot of you may relate to this. Over the weekend, feeling a little down, um, in my own little bubble, and then realizing that I can turn around my perspective in my situation, and that my perspective is creating my current reality. So instead of feeling helpless, I tend to do little pity parties for myself. So instead of getting into that mode, can I tap in and instead understand that I can change my situation and I can change my perspective? So I might not even be able to change the situation that I'm in. Maybe it's beyond my control, beyond my hands, but I can absolutely control how I respond and react in that situation. And so just remembering that can be challenging, especially depending on what you're going through right now. And I know everyone is going through something right now that's either depressing them or making them feel helpless. And so today's class is about transcending that and trying to work through that and get past that and understanding that even though there may be things beyond our control, we can always control how we react. So we'll be focusing on exercises today, even our breathing technique, designed to really tap in, especially to the solar plexus space. And the reason for that is, anatomically, this space of the body should be where all of our movement and activity is originating from. And so strengthening and understanding and really focusing on this space can make all of our movements more powerful and more intentional. Also, if we're looking at the energetics of this space, in yoga, it's the third chakra, Manipura, city of gems. Color is yellow. And this space is, or the solar plexus chakra, which chakra means wheel in Sanskrit, is our energy center for willpower, transformation, strength, determination, all of those kind of powerful feelings. And so, interestingly enough, if you're kind of sitting there like, oh, Aline, I don't want to hear the yoga hullabaloo, it's actually really interesting. I'm a very scientific person. And this area, the glands of the endocrine system that are represented by this space are our adrenal glands. That may be ringing a little bit of a bell. Adrenaline and other neurotransmitters like that actually make change happen, transformation happen in the physical body. So I find it really fascinating that there is a correlation between the ancient yogic energetic practices and anatomy. And so if you think about it too, or if you study the chakras more, these 7 energy centers in the body, they all correspond to both major nerve plexus, so they each correspond to a different nerve plexus and a different endocrine gland. And so I could talk all day about it, but I'll stop there. For class today, my mat is set up lengthwise, and that is because we'll be doing a fairly in-depth standing sequence. Don't let that get you nervous, though. It's in-depth doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be super challenging, but we will be standing and need space behind the mat or behind the chair. And remember, the mat is only really necessary if you have a hard floor. And even then, it's not necessary, but it might just be a nice added component. Barefoot today. Don't really need a towel. We won't be doing hip circles or other hip movements that will require the aid of a towel, but if you have it there, keep it because you might find a use for it. Now, for our centering technique today, we'll be focusing on deep diaphragmatic breathing. And I just want to give you a visual before we settle in and close our eyes and start breathing of the diaphragm. So go ahead and find just the center of your chest. And then trace that sternum or your breastbone down gently to the base. And then you can feel along the rib cage and kind of find the base of the rib cage. And so this will just kind of, and just go ahead and kind of palpate all around in there, just feeling for your structure. And coming back to that space of the sternum and the tip of that sternum, our diaphragm doesn't move below that space. So for me, on my body, my diaphragm is probably right about like so when it's at rest. It's an upside down bowl shape. And so at rest, which is actually my exhale, that's what my diaphragm looks like. Now, when I inhale, especially when I take a deep breath that engages my diaphragm more actively, it's going to flatten out and engage. I feel the ribs expand, and then my belly should expand. The reason why my belly expands, and that's kind of how I know I'm doing a successful deep diaphragmatic breath, is because I can't create any volume change in the abdomen other than elimination, which you're not doing when you practice yoga, or when you're in your class typically. So when I take that inhale and that diaphragm is pressing down, there's nowhere for the volume to go except out. So my belly should expand. That's telling me that I am doing a good deep diaphragmatic breath. Now, regardless of whether I engage my diaphragm more actively or not, it's still doing its thing while I breathe. That's just how we breathe, and our body does it automatically. But if I can take over, tap in, and engage it more, it makes it stronger, and it makes my breathing more effective. So I'm more effectively getting CO2 out of the lungs, and I'm more effectively bringing oxygen into the lungs, which is what my blood needs. So keep that in mind because I'll be working with that visualization as we center today. So let's get comfy, but not too comfy because we do want to start activating even in the beginning of class. If you do have those issues with the feet falling asleep and you've experimented with your best positioning, go for where you need to go. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, if your feet fall asleep when you sit still for a long time, you may not want to be on the very edge of your seat. We do restrict some blood flow through the nerves, sciatic nerve that runs in the back of the leg. If we sit there for a while, usually more than a couple minutes. And so you may want to scoot a little further back or even all the way back, especially if by the time we finish our centering, you find that your posture is like so, or that your back is aching, or those feet are falling asleep, or all of the above, then I do encourage you to settle back into the chair and just keep the abdomen as open as you can. Don't let yourself collapse down. So find your position for centering today. Wherever you end up, whether it's further back towards the chair or up towards the edge, do align the knees so that they're hip width and align those ankles so that they're underneath the knees. And we want to already feel this gripping, just slight gripping and connection with the feet in the floor, and maybe even a gentle downward push, as well as a gentle downward push into the bottom. So I want to be kind of pressing my hips down into the chair. And all of that pressing down actually helps lift the torso and abdomen. So settling in here, closing the eyes. Bring all of your focus and attention to the movement of your ribs. And now you might even be able to visualize a little more clearly your rib cage. Now that we've poked around and felt for the structure of that rib cage. And so first just breathing here, maybe deepening the breath if that feels good to you. And exploring and visualizing the movement of the ribs. On inhale, the space between each rib expands just a few millimeters. The rib cage itself lifts and spreads open. Our ribs have a feature where they are malleable and they bend and move a little bit. And because we have individual joints where the ribs connect to the spine and where the ribs connect to the sternum, that breastbone in the middle, there is some movability there. So think of your rib cage as a series of joints. And we're trying to expand and work into those joints, just like we do into our hips and our shoulders. Except we do this not with movement of the ribs necessarily from the outside, but from breathing and the movement that that creates. Allow that belly to expand. So we need to relax the abdominals enough so that on inhale, at the deep, when you can't inhale anymore and you're still trying to draw air in, you're feeling that belly expand. Maybe even a tiny bit. Might not be anything major. Inhaling and exhaling through the nostrils. Keep pressing down into the feet, down into the hips, lifting up through the crown of the head, lifting out through the heart. And on the flip side, as we're allowing the belly to expand on the inhale, on the exhale, see if you can engage powerfully at that spot of the solar plexus, below the ribs but above the belly button. Engaging our transverse abdominis muscles, the deepest layer of our abdominal muscles. The girdle layer that holds in our organs, that supports our posture the most. Arguably, I argue, the most of almost any other muscle. I'll say almost because there are a lot of other important muscles for our posture. So on the inhale, belly expands, ribs expand. On the exhale, abdominals engage, ribs kind of close down. So feel that movement. And then if you would like to, in your visualization, if it's not getting too challenging just to breathe and visualize, see if you'd like to visualize the diaphragm now, this sheet of muscle that runs and closes off the entire base of the rib cage. And that sheet of muscle, when you inhale, flattens out. So it's like a bowl shape. And when we inhale, it flattens out, helps to expand the ribs, helps to expand the belly. And on the exhale, it releases as our abdominals engage and nestles back up into its little bowl shape or upside down bowl shape. Stay here for several more rounds of breath. Just trying to visualize at least the movement of the ribs because we can feel that. You can even bring your hands to the rib cage, or maybe one hand to the ribs, one to the solar plexus space. and help that or allow that sense of touch to help you visualize this more. Work on that deep abdominal engagement on the exhale. And if you have both hands on the rib cage, on the inhale, you should feel those fingertips separate. And on the exhale, the fingertips probably come back together to touch. On your next exhale, if you have the hands up, go ahead and release them down to the thighs. And staying with that deep abdominal engagement on the exhale, on your next exhale, begin to move the hands forward, round through the back. So solar plexus, pressing navel to spine, folding forward, but deep abdominal engagement here. And on your inhale, releasing that space of the solar plexus, opening the belly, opening the chest, lifting the chin, sliding those hands back towards the hips. Exhale, deep engagement, press and squeeze that CO2 out of the lungs, that waste product. Body doesn't need it anymore. Inhale deeply, fully opening the whole front of the body to help open the ribs more, to draw more oxygen in. Exhaling, cat. And inhaling, cow. Feel free to keep the eyes closed here, or you can open them. But sometimes with eyes closed, we can tap in a little bit better, understanding the movements in our bodies and especially the breath. So try to keep with that deep diaphragmatic breathing even through these cat and cow movements. And then we'll release that breathing technique, unless you feel that you would like to continue it and can do so without getting distracted too much from the rest of the movements. Go ahead and take one more breath cycle here. Starting to warm up all those muscles along the spine and the core. And relax the movement, relax the breathing technique. We'll start to move side to side now. Just getting a little bit more into the spine and arms and shoulders. So take a deep inhale here. And exhale, so hands are down by the sides. Next inhale, float that right arm up. Exhale to move into your side reach. That left hand can trace down the leg of the chair for support. Inhale to come up. And exhale that right arm down. Inhale now, left arm up. Exhale, side reach to the right. Inhale back to center. And exhale, arm down. We'll continue like that several more times to each side. Inhaling the arm up. Exhaling into your side reach. Trying to keep the shoulders stacked over the hips, so we don't want this to become a forward reach. Just to the side. Inhaling to center and exhaling to release the arm. Inhale, left arm. Exhale, side reach. Inhale, center. And exhale, release. Go ahead and take one more reach to each side, moving at your rhythm of breath. Part of that process of tapping in, so whatever you've decided you want to tap into, is connecting the breath to the movement. After that last breath, relax here in the center for a moment. We'll start to bring some movement and opening now to the lower body. So straightening out that right leg to begin. If you're not at the edge of the seat, should have told you before the side reaches to move forward, but definitely now, scoot forward to the edge of your chair. And sitting up tall, hands on the hips to begin. Lifting up, thinking of that zippering movement or motion. You're just going to rotate those toes out as far as you can to the right, and then as far as you can to the left. Now, again, you're working within your pain-free range of motion, or you're working within a range of motion that doesn't increase pain level if you already have existing pain in the hips. Those of you who've had hip replacements, as long as you are past your physical therapy stage, so probably if it's been at least 6 months or so, you should be totally fine to do this movement, but listen to the body. So I know your doctors have told you not to internally rotate, but that is mostly crossing the legs is what that refers to. So that internal rotation of the hip, really terrible for your body and for many reasons, crossing the legs, but especially because it can make that hip joint come out of alignment if you've had that hip replacement. Now let's keep rotating. We're going to slowly start to move forward into a hamstring and calf stretch. So you're trying to keep rotating. That foot may move forward just a little bit and super slowly. So I'm talking like each time you rotate both ways, you're moving forward like another inch. And just keep moving forward until you reach your edge where you're feeling that stretch, but it's not getting the best of you. And once you've reached that point, you can stop with the rotating and just keep the toes facing up towards the ceiling. And just taking nice deep breaths here, maybe coming back to that diaphragmatic breathing. Feeling that belly press against your thigh as you inhale. Engaging deeply those abdominals as you exhale. Good. Let's slowly come up out of that stretch, drawing that right foot in and switching sides. Now, if being at the edge of the chair has gotten the backs of the thighs a little bit, especially if you don't have any padding on your chair, then just kind of shift around a little bit, get some blood flow going again, or I should say more because there is blood flow happening, but all right, straightening out that left leg now, hands to the hips, sitting up tall, shoulders down. Just start with your hip rotations. And if you'd like to, you can even bring your hand and just kind of feel around. What do you feel moving? You probably can't actually feel the head of the femur moving, but you can feel the movement that it creates in the muscles and which muscles are engaging. It's just interesting to understand your body on that level. Even if you don't know the anatomy of, oh, which muscles am I feeling, doesn't really matter. You're just connecting with that movement. So go ahead and start to slowly inch forward into your stretch now. See if you can keep rotating out and in as you very, very slowly come forward. And then once you reach that point where you're feeling, yep, I feel that stretch in the hamstrings, in the calf, I don't think I can go any further in my fold, then you can bring that foot back to center and hold this stretch. Come back to that deep diaphragmatic breathing, maybe even closing the eyes here, maybe bringing your free hand to your ribs or solar plexus. And getting that deep abdominal engagement on your exhale and the release of the abdominals, belly expanding on the inhale. Settle here for a few more breaths. When you're ready, on an inhale, slowly start to come back up, and you can release that diaphragmatic breathing focus. Slowly draw that left foot back in and under. And we're ready to move a little bit more to engage the solar plexus and tapping into that inner power. So let's take an inhale to lift the arms just to parallel to the ground. Shoulder height. Shoulders down, lifting and engaging from the abdomen. See if you can straighten that right leg. If you can, keep it parallel to the ground. That's great. That's going to work the hip flexors a lot more. But don't worry about it if you can't, if you need to straighten down here. So you're going to straighten, point, really powerfully point those toes. Really powerfully flex. Bring that foot back down. Let's do the other side. So straighten as close as you can to parallel with that leg to the ground. So that's your goal. Point, flex, and down. We're going to add an optional extra abdominal engagement here, so listen up for that. So right leg again, we're straightening, pointing really hard, flexing really hard, bringing that foot down, optional rock back, so abdominal rock. So you want to keep the spine long, rock back until you feel like, yep, feel all that engaging, and then come back up. So left leg, straighten, point, flex, down, abdominal rock. Remember, the rock is totally optional. Try to keep those feet planted down. If those shoulders are getting way too tired, you can bring hands to hips. We're going to try to do 2 more on each side. If you can, keep those arms lifted. Straighten, point, flex, down, optional rock back. Oh yeah. Straighten that left leg, point, flex, down, optional rock back. I know those shoulders and arms are burning. Try to keep them lifted for this last one, or if you've dropped them down, lift them up now for that last little bit of challenge. Optional abdominal rock. Last one. Straighten, point, flex, back. Last rock back if you choose. And relax those arms. Good work. You can swing those arms out if that feels good. Maybe roll the shoulders, whatever decompressive movements you need to do. And let's get ready to take our first vinyasa flow sequence. So finding seated Tadasana, deciding today how you want to fold forward, arms up, swan dive, or hands tracing the legs. Either way, let's inhale the arms up, lift and lengthen through the whole spine on that inhale. And on your exhale, fold forward, Uttanasana, your seated forward fold. Releasing heavily down onto the thighs. Remembering you can always space the feet wider apart if you need to accommodate more for your abdomen and torso. And find as much release here as you can in your forward fold. Let that head hang heavily. Remember, as long as that feels okay to you and you haven't been told that you shouldn't, bring your head below your heart.
Roll those shoulders, turn that head side to side. Again, whatever you need to do to release tension and let that body hang and dangle. Now we get ready to reactivate and strengthen the back muscles. So slowly start to lift the head up first, starting to bring that head and heart in alignment and head a little bit above the heart. Hands come to the thighs. We're going to do some locust lifts, and you have a couple different options. You can keep the hands on the thighs, but try not to press too hard into them as we lift and then lower. Lift and then lower. If you'd like to engage the back more and the arms, then send those arms back behind you. Palms facing in towards each other, fingertips spread apart. And we're going to lift on the inhale from the arms and the back. And then release on the exhale, but don't let the back round too much. Neck stays neutral. We're not lifting with the head. So we're actually kind of gazing down to the ground. Inhaling to lift and exhaling to release. So we're strengthening all along the whole length of the spine. And then if you're using the arms with me here, then you're also strengthening the triceps and posterior deltoid or back of the shoulders. Couple more. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. Lift and lower. Last inhale, lift all the way up. And exhale. Relax for a second. Maybe rolling the shoulders out, whatever you need to do with the arms. And we'll move along in our sequence. So next we'll be practicing some straight leg lifts with an optional twist. So again, designed to get into this center of strength, power, transformation. So whatever you're trying to tap into, this is where you bring that back to mind. So maybe you're trying to tap into your inner calmness. You've been really anxious lately. Maybe you're trying to tap in to your compassion. Maybe you're trying to tap into your strength. Whatever it is, visualize it here. Bring those arms up. Always an option to have the hands on the hips or down, but we will be rocked back. So I would say either arms out in front or hands behind you, or alternate. So if you're not quite able to do this and maintain your breathing, but this is too easy, then try just one hand. And then throughout the sequence, you're going to want to alternate those arms. So if you're with me with arms up, either way, lift and lengthen. Either way, lean back. Straightening out that right leg. We're going to lift that leg and lower. Lift and lower. So remember, you may just have one arm or you may have no arms right now. So just to show you the different options. That leg, you're lifting it as high as you can without starting to do this. So a lot of times our body wants to be efficient and we want to hunch forward as we lift that leg, but I want you to keep that length. And you'll really feel it. Optional twist here. So if you want to try the twist, as you lift, you're going to twist to the right. Oh boy. Give it a shot. Try it at least once. Whew. Let's do 4 more. 3. Remember, you don't have to be twisting now. 2. Whew. Last one. And release that leg down. Release those hands down if they're not already down here. Let's do a little reverse tabletop just to stretch out the front of that body. So you're pressing into the palms, pressing into that left foot,
and right heel, and maybe lifting those hips away from the chair just to stretch the front of that body. Try not to lock your elbows like I was, so these are locked out. Let's bend them a little bit. Release those hips down. Coming back up to seated, opening out to gate pose. So remember, trying not to use the hands will challenge the body a little bit more. You're keeping that right foot, heel, rooted where it is. So you're just trying to shift and open out. Of course, you can use the hands, and of course, you can move your foot. But again, I'm just demonstrating the goal of where we're heading in our transitions. So once in gate pose, you're trying to root the whole outer edge of that foot down, working on ankle mobility here. So just don't let your foot just placidly rotate in, especially if you already have pretty flat feet. You really want to work on trying to get that outer edge down and lift that inner arch up. So from here, we're just going to take a little stretch to each side. On your inhale, lift that left arm up, right hands to the hip, and you're reaching out. Probably feeling a little stretch in the hip here, maybe the inner thigh. Again, it really just depends on where you're tight. And you're holding here for a breath or two. On your inhale, lift up. And we're going to just counter stretch. So inhaling that right arm up, left hand comes down to the chair, taking a nice little side reach. This one should probably feel really good, especially if you did that twist for our abdominal strengthening. So kind of stretching out that whole right side. Breathing here. Sorry if some of you were probably like waiting for me to tell you when to inhale, when to exhale. So take an inhale to come up when you're ready to release the stretch. And let's move into high lunge. We'll be doing high lunge standing behind the chair later in the class. So let's practice here with the support of the chair. So again, keeping that leg pretty much where it is, starting to rotate onto the back toes. And of course, you may shift your foot a little bit. This left foot will shift, and you're really just kind of perched on this edge of your seat. And so feel as if you could, and maybe even practice standing or lifting out of that chair a little bit here. But making your way here, getting a lovely stretch. So we really worked these hip flexor muscles, this muscle that runs basically like this, but imagine it connecting actually to my spine, all the way through my abdomen, and then connecting to the femur bone. So now we were doing this, shortening with those leg lifts. Now we're expanding and stretching. So it's really important to get your balance, stretching and strengthening. Go ahead and add a little twist if you'd like to. Again, should feel really good for those oblique muscles that we worked really hard as well. And so holding on to either side of your chair, twisting, remembering not to lean into your twist. You want to keep the ribs stacked over the hips. Take one more deep inhale here. And on your exhale, release the twist. Start to release this whole body back to the front. And find your seated Tadasana once again. Coming to the edge of your chair. While you get situated there, I'm just going to rotate my whole setup here so that you can have optimal viewing of alignment on the other side. All right. Getting pretty decent at that, I think. So decide how you would like to fold in your vinyasa. Let's take an inhale to lift the arms. And on your exhale, fold forward, Uttanasana, or your seated forward fold. Stretching the back.
We're really tractioning out here, so we're actually lengthening the spine in this fold. If you're really allowing the body to release, maybe even try grabbing opposite elbows here and see if you like that added weight that kind of helps drag you deeper into the stretch. Taking some deep, relaxing breaths here. Maybe even rocking a little side to side, just to shift that stretch around and loosen up the hips a little more. They're probably trying to clench right now. And we want to try to invite space, invite relaxation, and sometimes adding little rocking movements can help with that. On your next exhale, release that bind if you have grabbed opposite elbows. And on another inhale, start to lift that head, neck, and shoulders up. Go ahead and slide those hands under you and onto the thighs. Start to engage the whole length of the spine. So remember our cats and cows in the beginning of class. We want to try to create that cow shape with our spine right now. So I'm trying to push that belly forward, open the chest, and I'm creating that shape. Sending those arms back for some Supermans now in our locust. So you can remain here and hold and breathe. You can try opening the arms out to the sides and then bringing them back down. Or you can try opening the arms all the way up and all the way down. So pick how intense you want to go today. And just keep breathing. If you're moving with the arms, it may be helpful to do this on your inhale and on your exhale to bring the arms back. We're going for 2 more. Remember, you may be stopping at the shoulders, or you may just be holding this locust pose here with me. 1 more if you're doing the arms. Everyone take an inhale to lift all the way up. And exhale to release. Very good. All right, let's straighten that left leg out now. Remember your options with your arms for these leg lifts. So either arms in front, maybe 1 arm, or maybe both arms behind will be rocked back. So let's go for it. On an exhale, rock back. Keep that long line. Don't let yourself round. If you start to round and you just can't correct it, then come to sitting straight up instead of rocking back, okay? So we're lifting and lowering to begin. We'll add that twist later if you liked that and want to do that on this side. So inhaling and exhaling to lower. Inhaling to lift, exhaling to lower. We're moving slowly with focus and effort. Think of what you want to tap into. Oh, yeah. And send that intention through the body, helping fuel this effort. Now, if you want to add the twist, let's go for it. So the twist happens as you lift the leg, and you're staying in that tilt. Oh, yes. On this case, I would exhale as you twist. So altering that breathing pattern a little bit. 3 more. 2. Last 1. And come up. And exhale, relax. Whew, yes. Let's send those hands back for a little reverse tabletop. So pressing down into that right foot, into the left heel, to either just straighten out and stretch, or maybe even lift the hips. If you start to feel that chair moving, though, don't lift those hips away from the chair. We don't want to risk any toppling out of your seat. Relax those hips if you have them lifted. Coming back to seated, and we'll try to, as fluidly as we can and gracefully, shift into gate pose. So keeping the left heel where it is, trying to rotate out. Ta-da! You maybe had to use your hands though. Totally fine. Remember, it's these little transitions, even transitioning between the movements. It's all designed to get into the little muscles of the body, to open things up, and to just make these everyday transitions, getting up and out of your chair, getting in and out of the car. All those little things will start to become easier when we practice in our class. So getting into gate pose, remember we're trying to really push onto the outer edge of that left foot. We'll start with stretching over to the left side. So left hand to the hip, inhaling that right arm up, and exhaling over into your reach. You can always do this without that arm lifted, especially if you feel like you might fall out of your chair. If you don't feel secure, then bring that right hand down. But for those of you who want the deepest stretch here, and a little more challenge, that arm will be lifted. Remember to try to keep the chest open. So right shoulder's moving back, left shoulder's moving forward. On an inhale, come up out of your stretch. And let's take that counter reach. So right hand to the chair, inhaling that left arm up, and then exhaling to move and create that nice long line all the way from my left fingers to my left foot. Taking one more deep breath here. On an inhale, come up, and we'll try to, as fluidly and gracefully as we can, move into that high lunge position. So walking that right foot out, turning that left hip down towards the ground, I'm pivoting onto the toes. So shifting, of course, maybe I used my hands and I had to wiggle around in the chair. It's fine. Do what you need to do to get more or less into this position, and as much as you can, straightening that back leg. That will give you the most stretch here, across the front of the hip. Oh yeah. And if you're not really feeling that stretch across the front of the hip very much, try to tuck that tailbone under you. So you're almost trying to kind of push. You can even do what I'm doing with my hand, kind of pushing down on the glute and lifting up under the belly button. So this kind of movement. You should feel that light up there in the psoas muscle. And if you'd like to go a little deeper, add your twist. But remember, I'm keeping the ribs and shoulders stacked over the hips. Shoulders stay relaxed. Take a couple breaths in your twist or just still holding your high lunge. Deep inhale, lift and lengthen any amount more. And on your exhale, release. Keep releasing. Keep unwinding all the way to the front. And it's time to come up to standing. So you can do so however you would like, perhaps joining me in a little chair pose hold. And so if you're going to come through chair with me, walk those heels in underneath you. They'll probably lift off the ground. Make sure those feet are about hip width apart. We don't want it too narrow of a stance with our feet too close together, because that decreases our base of support. It makes balance a lot harder. So we want to widen those feet out.
and then start to reach forward. So that little bit of a reach forward can kind of help you get the momentum to get up. So as I reach forward, I'm trying to push my heels down, engaging my quads, and lifting my hips just a little bit from the chair. I want to try to hold here if I can. Core is engaged. Everything's engaged in this pose. And take an inhale to slowly come up to standing. Stretch up through those fingertips. And on your exhale, relax the arms. And let's get into our little standing sequence now. So I do recommend you moving your chair forward, pretty much to the front edge of your mat if you're using a mat. So if you're not, you don't need to move your chair at all, unless you don't have enough space behind you for a wide-legged stance. So moving that chair forward, we're going to start working with the right leg. So let's take a moment to center and root in our standing Tadasana, our mountain pose. And so in this pose, just like seated, I want my feet hip-width apart. So you can kind of feel for the pointy parts of your hips. That's your anterior superior iliac crest, by the way, in case you were curious. And so those hip bones, you can kind of bring those feet into your alignment here. Feet are parallel. And as I work my way up, so now I've set my foundation. As I work my way up, my knees are micro bent, no locking. So notice the difference, locked versus micro bent versus bent. Okay? As I continue to work my way up, my quads are engaged a little bit. Because my knees are bent, I'm actually using my muscles around the joints. So as I continue to work my way up, let's talk about the pelvis. So remember we talked about the tilt of the pelvis. So you can either tuck it, that would be one extreme, or the other extreme is kind of poking it out. That's what we want to do when we want to try to stretch the hamstrings. We want to try to keep it neutral. So I don't want to be tucking and I don't want to be poking out. I want to be somewhere in between. So you can kind of move yourself through those options. Yeah, it looks a little weird. Who cares? We want to really start to understand and feel our bodies and our posture. And so I want to get kind of in a neutral where I'm engaging right in here, the low belly, and I'm lengthening through the low back. And then so again, we feel this engagement. As I work my way up, shoulders are over the hips and pushing down. And then ears are aligned here. And go ahead and maybe, if you can, release the hands if your balance is okay. And just feel how awesome it feels to be actually evenly standing in your body. This is anatomical position. In any of your anatomy classes, this is the position of which we talk about any joint movement. This is where all of our joints are in what's considered neutral. And it should feel pretty wonderful to your body, although it may be hard to maintain, so you may be feeling a challenge. All right, so from here, hands to the seat. We're going to shift that weight over to the left just a little bit to free up that right foot and take a big step back. So picking up that right foot, big step back, almost to the back of your mat if you can. So of course, depending on how tall you are, that'll change things a little bit. Here, you want to still be able to grab hold of the chair. So if you've taken a huge step back and you're not even touching the chair anymore, maybe come back, come a little closer to your chair and try that again. So we're coming into that high lunge position. This is going to be our balance sequence for today. We're going to transition between 3 different poses a couple different times, because once is never enough. So high lunge here. If you can, that right arm is lifted. If your balance is pretty good, maybe both arms are lifted. Or you're just lifting that left arm and keeping it close to the chair just in case you need to bring it back down. But your ultimate goal is here. You're standing high lunge. You're bent into that left knee. Knee is over the ankle. This is wonderful for the knee joint to keep that alignment and to really try to engage that quad. All right, let's add a little twist here. So bring that right hand down. Now left hand in front. On an exhale from that space of the solar plexus, twist over to that left side any amount. Won't be a big, huge twist, but you will feel it. And on an exhale, release that twist. Right hand comes back up. We're going to transition into Warrior Two. Your back foot will probably be thanking you for that. So you're trying to open out to the right side. So I'm opening my arm, I'm opening my hip, and I'm pivoting onto the back foot. And now I find myself in Warrior Two. So trying to stay bent into that left foot. Right arm is reaching out. Again, if you feel pretty confident in your balancing and you want to lift that left arm up too, go for it, even if it's just for a second. That's awesome. Breathing here. Let's try to transition between those poses a little faster now. So left hand comes back down. This is where balance comes in especially. As I rotate that or bring that right hand down, I'm going to rotate onto the back toes and rotate that right hip back under me. So it'll look like this. So as I start to pivot onto the back toes, swing that arm down and bring it back up for your high lunge. Send that right hand down, left arm just to shoulder height, and exhale out into your twist. Taking just a breath here, so we're not holding it as long. You're going to release the twist. Right hand up. Exhale, open out to Warrior Two. Maybe that left hand lifts. Awesome. Now we get to do all that on the other side. So let's come. Well, actually, I would like to do it one more time for good measure. So you might have noticed I always do things in threes. So lowering down, that's kind of a yoga thing, kind of just a me thing. I feel like the first time you're just learning it. The second time you're like, yes, I get it. The third time really seals it in your body. So left arm up. Excuse me, twist, back to center, right arm up, open out to Warrior Two. Maybe that arm lifts for full Warrior Two, maybe not. And pivot down. Instead of bringing that arm up, let's bring it back to the chair. Try to bend into that left foot a little more, and you're trying to springboard off the back foot to bring that back foot to meet the front foot. Ooh, boy, wiggle it out. That back ankle, probably burning. You might want to rotate it around. Anything you need to do to decompress the body. And let's get ready for the other side. So I'm actually just going to turn my chair. So this time, we'll be stepping that left foot back. So first, get yourself really centered in your standing Tadasana. So the hip width apart, feet parallel, slight bend in the knees, work with that pelvic tilt, finding neutral, where the low back is lengthening but you're not tucking, and where that low belly is engaged. Solar plexus is engaged. Shoulders are relaxed. Yes. So once you find that space, now you're going to shift over to your right just a little bit to bend that left knee. And taking a very big step back. Now, see if you can check out your feet. Remember I mentioned, I think in a couple classes, the idea of railroad tracks. So we want to feel like we're on railroad tracks. We have still keeping that hip width space between the feet, even though one's way in front of the other. High lunge. So adjust as you need to. If you need to take a little baby step in, you feel too spread out. Do whatever you need to do to get into a good position here. Front knee over ankle. Deep inhale here. On your exhale, release that left arm. Send that right arm up. And on an exhale, move into your twist. In this twist, you should really feel like the heads of the femur bones kind of squeezing together, and you're trying to rotate from that space of the solar plexus. Let's release back to the front. Left arm comes up. And this time, opening out to warrior two. So I'm going to start to open this arm out. At the same time, I'm opening this hip out, and I'm trying to rock onto the outer edge of my left foot. So opening out, pivoting. Remember, practicing these transitions is really good for the body in building what we need to transition in daily life. So that left arm is out, shoulder height. Maybe my right arm comes up as well. And remember, you can always adjust as you need to if you want to go a little wider or a little narrower. We're trying for that seamless, fluid movement, but it's not a deal breaker. We don't have to do that. All right, let's do two more transitions or two more times through that sequence. So rotating that left hip forward, pivoting onto the back toes, high lunge. Perhaps this other hand comes up or both arms come up. If you're very comfortable with your balance and you want to practice the twist without the chair, you're just going to twist and open the arms out. Or this hand is to the chair. And again, to come back to high lunge, if you're doing it without the chair, you're going to sweep that right hand down, both arms up. And again, if you're transitioning to warrior two without the chair, you're just opening those arms out as you open. Or this hand is down. Awesome, guys. So one more time through that sequence. Rotate, high lunge. Rotate into your twist. Release that twist, high lunge. And last warrior two. Last high lunge. And leaning forward, stepping that left foot forward to meet the right. Yes! Nice job. Pat yourself on the back. Shake it out however you need to. Let's do a couple little cool down stretches and relax. You guys did so good today. Lots of effort. So let's stretch those quads a little bit. Just some dynamic butt kicks. Not a very graceful term. But that's what we're going for. We're trying to kick our butt with our heels. It's just stretching the quads dynamically here. Let's take a standing downward dog and a standing pigeon. So we've done seated pigeon. We're going to try it standing today. So I'll walk you through that. So for our standing downward dog, hands to the chair. You can even kind of start to lean forward here. Start to walk those feet back. Maybe this is as far as you go, and then you lean forward into that nice stretch. If you want to get the chest and shoulders stretched a little more, then you're definitely going to want to walk back further. In fact, you're going to want to walk so far back that your arms straighten, and then you sink down into that stretch. So wherever you go, anywhere in between this and what I demonstrated before, all of it's fine. You're just trying to feel the stretch in the hamstrings, the calves, probably the glutes, probably the back. And then if you've come a little further back, you're feeling it in the chest and shoulders as well. One of my favorites, y'all. Even better than actual downward facing dog on the mat. You can bend the knees, pedal, or hold it in stillness, but just don't lock those knees out. And very slowly starting to come up. If you've lowered that head and chest down, start there. Start by lifting the head and chest. Then slowly inching those feet back in. Mindful of any dizziness here. So just keeping hold of that chair if you need to. Let's move into our standing pigeon stretch. So with this one, I recommend walking those feet back so that there's, oh gosh, I don't even know how far that is. More than a foot between your legs and the back of the chair. Start by crossing that right ankle over the left ankle and opening that knee out to the side. And then you're just going to push that butt back. And you should feel a stretch all down the side of that leg. So you're getting into IT band a little bit. You can bend that supporting knee a little bit more if that helps you feel more of a stretch. Those of you that are a little more flexible, cross ankle at the knee and do the same thing. So it's really the same thing that we do in the chair, but we're just standing. And I don't know if you can see my toes very well, but I have them under me. But you could also do this practicing or stretching the top of the foot. Oh, yes, I like that. All right, another breath or two here. And slowly come up. Now, if you really hated that, maybe you should consider trying it still on the other side, or you can always come and do it seated instead if you're just like, no, Aline, not feeling that today. If you're still with me with the standing, crossing that left ankle, maybe toes under to stretch the top of the foot, or toes like so to stretch the bottom of the foot, or maybe you alternate halfway through. And then you're just sinking those hips back, maybe experimenting with bending this knee. Does it increase or decrease your stretch? Experiment with shifting in the hips and where you feel the most stretch. So everybody's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to do that. Oh, top of the foot stretch. And of course, if you are more flexible and you really don't feel a stretch in the hip with the ankles crossed, then come to that higher up cross. Wonderful job tapping in today, y'all. Working on that core strength. Working energetically on Manipura, third chakra. Slowly come out of that stretch. And who's ready to relax? I know I am. So coming to your chair, to an armchair, to your couch, wherever you want to go, to the floor, wherever you want to go to get comfy. Let's make your way there for just a little bit of decompression time. We've worked so hard today. Need to balance that out with a little bit of relaxation. So get as comfortable as you can, trying to keep the torso as open as you can. I like to, if I'm staying in the chair, I kind of like to just try to loosen up those legs. I don't want to hold any muscle effort here. So sometimes kind of wiggling and flopping them around can really help with releasing. So once you get comfortable, let those eyes close and bring your focus to that space of the solar plexus, above the navel, below the ribs. And begin to visualize this bright yellow light, just a little ball of it in the center of your body. And as you breathe and relax here, you start to feel almost this sense of fiery warmth building in the abdomen, in that space of that yellow ball. Each inhale fuels the warmth, and it begins to spread and grow. So with each inhale that you take, see that yellow light spreading to fill the whole space of the abdomen with that sense of warmth, that glowing feeling. And as you continue to breathe, spread down towards the legs, spread up towards the heart, and out towards the arms. And each inhale, that bright warmth spreads a little bit more to slowly fill your entire body with this transformative fire. And once you see and feel that light filling your entire being, know that you have tapped in to this inner strength, inner wisdom, and you can tap in again and again and again. When you're ready, begin to bring movement back, starting small, the fingers and the toes. Gradually increasing the movement, maybe rolling the ankles and the wrists, or pointing and flexing, making fists with the hands, waking yourself up however you feel is the juiciest today. And then perhaps stretching out long, finding length, finding space, maybe a newfound sense of space in the body that wasn't there before. And if you haven't already opened your eyes, go ahead and do so. Gradually bringing yourself to an upright seated position. Drawing the hands together, palms together in front of the heart. Just tapping those thumbs into that heartbeat. Maybe you can even feel it against the thumbs. May this power that is ever present within you shine out through every thought, every action, and every word. Namaste. And I say namaste as a sign of respect, gratitude, and love towards all of you. Thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions, you know that I am always willing to answer anything that I can, taking suggestions, taking requests. So reach out to me, and I hope that you feel just a sense of lightness, power, whatever you were going for, whatever your intention was with today's practice, that you have found it, and just feel a little more easeful in your body. And I will see you all next time. Have a wonderful day. Bye.